Now, the Russian spy ship we've been tracking is hanging out, if you will, off the coast of Virginia, home to the world's largest naval base. The U.S. military is monitoring the ship and has been doing so for weeks, as they've told our Lucas Tomlinson in exclusive reporting. And while the president says he wants better relations with Moscow, there is a question as to where his new national security advisor stands. Joining me now is Peter Doran. He's the executive vice president at the Center for European Policy and an expert on Russia and Ukraine. Peter, it's great to have you back on the program. I'm going to ask our control room to put back up the map that we just showed our viewers so they could watch one more time where the ship has traveled over the last several weeks. And you'll see that blue line along the shore. So it's worth pointing out that the ship is not doing something illegal per se. It's not doing something unlike we would do, the Pentagon has also said. But it is significant and is symbolic in some ways, Peter. And I'm curious your thoughts as to what Russia is up to.
Well, the deployment of this spy ship along the east coast of the United States demonstrates that Russia is clearly not happy with some of the recent developments that have taken place here in Washington. So this spy ship is there to send a message, and that message says we're here, we're listening, and we still view ourselves as competing against you. That's the message that this spy ship is intended to send to the White House, and so far the response from the U.S. administration has been very cool and calm, and that's how you're supposed to act given this kind of move from the Kremlin. Interesting,
Peter. I'm curious what you will say to what critics say of President Trump, which is that Russia's so happy that he's in office. You seem to have a difference of opinion with that based on their actions so far. Why is that?
For starters, we're dealing with a very rapidly moving situation here in Washington. The administration is still filling out key positions in the national security team and among the foreign policy team. Some of the recent moves the administration has made are actually quite strong. Appointing, for example, General H.R. McMaster as national security advisor. All of this points to something new, that the kind of approach the president might take towards Putin will be different than what we might have anticipated. Given some of the rhetoric on the campaign trail.
We don't know that much about General McMaster. We do know that he has support from both sides of the aisle. What do you see in him, Peter, given that most of his experience is in the Middle East? What do you see in him and his philosophy and how he might deal with Russia?
Well, for starters, General McMaster is known to be one of the smartest generals in the Army. He's also a student of history, and he's also studied exactly how a president's national security team should provide the president with the best possible information so that the president can make the best possible choices. There are very few people I can think of who are better positioned by training or disposition than General McMaster for this job. We also know that General McMaster, he's a straight shooter, and he also understands Russia should not be trusted, and allies matter. Allies help to make America strong. These are both two important messages which I would anticipate he would be presenting to the president.
You know, we sort of glossed over some of his combat awards. He was awarded the Silver Star because of combat in the first Gulf War, and he received that, Peter, because he was part of one of the biggest tank battles that we've seen since World War II. And as soon as I read that, I thought, I wonder what Russia thinks about that. Given, well, we're talking about tanks and the movements of tanks, we're mainly talking about Russia and what they're doing around Ukraine. What do you think Russia is reading into this appointment?
Well, if I was the strategist in the Kremlin, I'd actually be very nervous right now. General McMaster is one of those few individuals who is a warrior scholar, if you will. He spent a lot of time trying to think how the American army can fight and win in an unwanted conflict in Eastern Europe. This is a general that will provide excellent advice both from his personal combat experience as well as his scholarly work in studying how past administrations have succeeded and failed. These are all very positive things to be adding to the president's new national security team. If I'm an American, I'm feeling good. If I'm a Russian strategist, I'm feeling very nervous right now.
That's interesting characterization. I'm curious, Peter, as well. One of the things I don't think we talk enough about is what the end goal here is. You know, what would success look like? If we say we have a successful foreign policy when it comes to Russia, what are we talking about? How would you define success as you see it today?
Well, at the end of the day, we have to put priorities on the table. The president is going to have to set priorities and fulfill them. One of the absolute priorities that he has to take into account is the U.S. alliance. At the end of the day, it is America's allies in Europe and in Asia that make America strong, that help us to project power around the world and ultimately maintain peace. That should be the absolute goal, and I have no doubts that the people who are around the president right now have that goal, understand those priorities, and are going to be presenting good choices to the president to make.
Very interesting. Good to talk about the big picture. Peter, always nice to have you in the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.